My presentations are a little unique in that I usually like to spend the first couple minutes talking about what we do as a company and the services we provide, and then I just go off on wild, crazy tangents about things that I like to talk about that I find interesting. So if at any time during the middle or end of my presentation here you find yourself a little bit confused, don't be concerned. That's actually part of the plan. So you can always come up to me afterwards and ask me a few questions, and I'll be happy to kind of talk through what I'm presenting here later today. Just really want to do three main things here is kind of talk to you about what's going on at PPC Loan and how you can utilize us to borrow money to grow your agency. Number two, talk about the value index that was just released yesterday and kind of the direction of agency values and how that affects you guys as a whole. And then I wrote a editorial that came out yesterday, and it really outlines the last 15 years of agency sales, what it's done to agency owner net worths, and it really begs the question that the reader has to answer: is Allstate agency ownership the best small business opportunity in the country? We are your growth partner, and I feel it's real important for me to say that because a lot of folks, when they look at PPC Loan, they only think of us as a company that does acquisition loans. They see the Allstate Agency Value Index. But we actually do a lot more than that. We do refinance loans. We try to match up appropriate rates and repayment terms to allow agents to lower their monthly obligations and grow their business. We provide working capital where we just give you cash and allow you to use that to invest in your agency's success. And then obviously we help folks acquire additional premium. Those three things that we've done over the last 15 years have resulted in $705 million in funded loans, and we've been involved in over 2,000 individual agency sales since that time. Something new we're doing, and some of you may or may not be interested in this, but using your existing agency to buy equity in your existing agency to buy an ADB qualifying either startup or smaller size agency. A lot of agents have done that as a satellite and written a check. If you want to access $75,000, $100,000, $150,000 to utilize that, we can do that. Why do I say we're your growth partner? And Jay kind of hit on it. When you go to a lot of banks, or if I'm pursuing a new bank to partner with us, the first question I usually get is, when one of these things go bad, how do we get out of it? They're always concerned with what's the collateral and how do we get out of a bad loan? Because their assumption is these loans are going to go bad. And my statement back to them is we always have a different mindset at PPC. We're always saying, okay, how can we tee people up for success so that we don't have issues, so that people will be successful, and so that they can realize the career that they want going into these businesses, not when this guy fails, what type of TPP can we get? Can we get a lien on their house? Those types of things. The new Allstate Agency Value Index is out. I've got some copies on the table out there. The real headline here is that values are up for 3 straight quarters and that large size agencies are driving that growth. If you look, and I don't have a laser pointer here, but kind of across it says 300,000 and up. That's essentially books of $3 million in premium or greater, and the average multiple that those books sold was 2.79. And so we've seen essentially on that category at least 4 straight quarters of growth. This, for me, is a pretty key slide that I put together. It really validates the pursuit of growth, the investment of growth, because I talk to a lot of agents and they get real focused on what is the ROI or what is the acquisition cost of a single piece of business. And I say, look, there's more than just what's the acquisition cost of a single piece of business. This slide right here essentially tells you, and for each category, so you see 0 to $1 million in premium, 1 to $2 million in premium, 2 to 3, and 3 and up. Each category, that's the range of sales multiples for the last 100 deals that we financed. So if you look at 1 to 2 million in premium, in the last 100 deals, you could sell and expect to get between 1 and essentially 2.5 times. Now, if you had a $3 million book of business, you could expect to get somewhere, and I'm kind of eyeballing this here, but 2 to 3.5 times. That's a significant difference in value, and it essentially goes to the point that there's more than just what's the ROI on a single policy. What is the overall value proposition of pursuing growth? And a large part of it is, what does it do to your net worth, and what does it do to the future value of what you could sell your agency for? The last thing I really wanted to talk about was the editorial that I did. This is the main map of the editorial. It essentially shows what has happened to the value of Allstate agencies over a 15-year period. And I'm not going to go into all the details here, but there's really 4 sections that I described in the editorial. The first 4 years, 2000 to 2003, I really call the adolescent years. Everybody had just converted from employee to independent contractor. We were really trying to figure out what are these agencies worth. You've got in green your growth years, kind of your yellow correction years, and then kind of now we're rebuilding values. It's more of an informed period. So I encourage everybody to get a copy of that. I got multiple bound copies outside. But this slide to me is where it's really at, and I think this is the sales pitch for why you want to be an Allstate agency owner. I actually went through, because I don't work on loans in the office, so I have a lot of free time, but I actually went through a lot of old applications and then a lot of new customers' personal financial statements, and I looked, what does the average applicant look like when they come to PPC Loan, right? And the average net worth of an applicant for us was about $300,000 in personal net worth. And then after 5 years, what do they look like 5 years after purchasing their loan? From equity they've built up in their agency, from cash accumulation, wealth, those types of things. And it's just getting cut off a little bit there, but essentially in a 5-year period, their net worth grew $700,000 to an average of about $1 million. So pretty significant. The point I really like to drive home here is what you guys have is very, very unique. It doesn't exist at State Farm. It doesn't exist at Farmers. There's nowhere else you can go to have the type of modification and appreciation in your personal net worth and wealth accumulation like you can have when you build and grow and own an Allstate agency. Case in point, I think it's now 7 years, 2008, I was asked to attend a Horace Mann meeting. Does anybody know Horace Mann? Are y'all familiar with Horace Mann? I was invited by some ex-Allstaters. They asked me to come and speak to a group of management folks. It was about 50 people or so. And they really wanted to achieve what Allstate had. They were looking at the value index. They said, well, look, we want our business model to be one of the best business models in the country. We want people to join Horace Mann because they can become wealthy. What do we need to do? So I started reviewing their documents, I reviewed their contracts, and I sent them a list. I said, here's the things you need to do to have a pure independent contractor relationship with your agency force so that people will want to join Horace Mann and people can have extreme acceleration in the value of their personal net worth. Well, nothing happened, and it was kind of a funny thing. I had talked to one agent who was on the fence. He was between Horace Mann and he was between Allstate, and I was talking to him at the same time I was talking to Horace Mann. And he ended up going to Horace Mann. And the only reason I bring up this story was because he called me yesterday. And he said, I have lots of regret. He said, do you remember me from years ago? And I went and I looked at my email. I was like, oh, yeah, I see email from you. He's like, I should have joined Allstate. He said, our books aren't worth anything. A lot of the largest agents in the company are putting their businesses back to Horace Mann. They're walking away. He said, I have no reason to invest money in the growth of my business. He said, but I feel, after reading your editorial, because he called me right after it went out, that if I was with Allstate, I'd feel real excited and would be willing to invest a lot of my money in the growth of my business. He's like, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck. So we had a long conversation. Short version of the story is there's a big battle between agents and management at Horace Mann. Their commission rate's down to 7.5%. The profitability on his agency to himself is 10%. And he's apparently one of the top 10 agents in the entire country for Horace Mann. So I think, the statement I made when this slide came up was, this is your validation for growth. Being able to, or the pursuit of growth, being able to increase your net worth in such a way that you can realize significant cash in closing. Our average seller, between the amount of loan that we provide and any type of cash down payment from a buyer, our average seller receives 93% of their purchase price at closing. That's pretty significant. That's very close to a pure liquid asset on your balance sheet that's pretty much readily convertible to all cash. So that was the big thing I wanted to talk about on this slide. I have a lot of copies outside if anyone hasn't gotten one yet. And then the last slide I had was really the validation of my comments on how valuable the Allstate model is. This is really, truly one of my favorite slides. These are our 4 major industries over the years in which we've lent. We've got Allstate, dental, veterinary, and accounting. On the far right in brackets, that's how much in loans we funded. Now, I haven't updated this because we're over $700 million with Allstate now, but we've done $691 million per this chart in Allstate loans. We've had $779,000 in losses. That is unbelievably low. With our partner banks in dental, we've funded $456 million in loans. We've had $10 million in losses, and they still love dental loans. They're still doing them. Veterinary, $48.5 million, more losses than Allstate. So this is kind of my proof is in the pudding slide. Just a validation of what you guys have, how valuable it is, and just, kind of maybe be grateful for the opportunity. But my final slide is, and I'm glad I put this in here, because like Jay said, you don't ask, you don't get. So if anybody's got a referral, I'll be happy to call them.
Thanks, Paul.